Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Halloween Kills, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, Andy Matichak, Will Patton, and Anthony Michael Hall, directed by David Gordon Green. And yes, I have done the Halloween movies before. I've done them back when the 2018 movie came out. And the reason I didn't get to this one last year was because, well, there's two reasons. One, I was a little behind on recording shows, and that's one of the reasons. And reason number two, because it was after Halloween, after I got all this down, I thought, you know what? Let's wait till next year when this new movie comes out. Because I knew there was going to be another movie next year, which was this year, of course. So why not start right here again? And I have watched all the Halloween movies before this movie, and the upcoming Halloween ends. So let's see as it comes out tomorrow. Let's check on this review and see if I like this any better than the original, not the original, but the 2018 version. Let's get into it. We start right here where the last movie left off, with Cameron Elam, I don't know if I said that right, is sort of dumped by Allison, returned by back then newcomer Andy Matichak, as he tries to find her but sees a wounded Officer Hawkins, returned by Will Patton, and calls for help as he says he needs to die. And off screen, the ambulance comes in. Meanwhile, back in 1978, in Haddonfield, Illinois, we see an officer who happens to be young Hawkins following Michael Myers and misses his shot at killing Michael Myers as backup arrives, and Lonnie Elam, who happens to be Cameron's father as a kid, gets picked on by some bullies and runs off after the cops, asking if they saw Michael, and he say he killed three teenagers down the street. And Lonnie runs home and encounters Michael and almost gets killed by Michael until Hawkins comes in with his partner, and they go to the Myers house where they find Michael to try to shoot him down until he appears and one cop gets killed by Hawkins while being held captive by Michael, and doesn't go back briefly to help his partner until he does. And I thought, for Christ's sakes, go to him. But the other cops catch Michael, and Sam Loomis asks if Michael was killed, or if he killed anyone in the house. And despite I like we go back to the flashbacks of 1978, but Jesus, all these scenes were so stupid as it ran too long at best, but it's passable in a stupid kind of way. I don't know if that makes sense, but do I like it with, like, I love it, that kind of thing? No, but it's mediocre at best. I do like the opening credits of the theme song and the pumpkins burning up, and I thought that was kind of cool, a cool moment. We get to a bar as it's Mike night, and we follow an African American couple who we briefly saw in the last movie, by the way, getting drinks while they sit behind the survivors of the 1978 film, with Tommy Doyle, played this time by Anthony Michael Hall, along with Lindsay Wallace, who's returned by the actress from the original Kyle Richards, Marion Wallace, who was the nurse in the first film, and Lonnie as an adult. And Tommy tells the story of what happened in the first film. Then we move on to Laurie Strode, returned by Jamie Lee Curtis, and her daughter Karen, returned by Judy Greer, and granddaughter Allison, as I brought up before, as they see as I brought up earlier, and they see some fire trucks going to the house Laurie burned up in the last film while on the way to the hospital. And why the fuck are these firefighters so fucking stupid is beyond me. They get brutally murdered by Michael, and the scene is graphic, as this movie is more about the kills, sure, than the characters, as we barely get character moments in this movie. And this time Laurie doesn't do anything in this whole movie, like, at all. So that pissed me off right off the bat, and the characterization this time is much more dull than the last film, as this is not turning out as good as the original 1978 film, nor the 2018 film, in my opinion. A couple gets killed by Michael, rather brutally in this movie, and this movie is a hell of a lot more brutal than any of the previous movies, with an exception of the shit Rob Zombie did in the 2 remakes he did. And if you go back, I didn't like either one of those, but as far as the original and the 2018 stuff and H2O goes, this one is one of the bad movies, but not as worse as Halloween 3 through 6 and Halloween Resurrection. While I watched the rated and unrated versions of this movie, and the unrated version is just as unnecessary as the rated cut, and there are just a few added scenes here and there that don't really matter to this movie. Cameron calls Lonnie and tells him he's in trouble, and Michael is going around killing people in town, and the authorities warn the town about Michael being unleashed as he's in the African American couple's car. As she says out loud, Michael is in their car, and Tommy and some others come out to get Michael, but is unsuccessful. As Michael drives away and runs it into a wall on a building, and I don't like these people as they come off rather pretentious, including Tommy, as he comes off like a village asshole. We get a gay couple named Big John and Lil John getting harassed by some kids with masks from Halloween 3, and they tell the story of whose house they're messing with, which happens to be Michael Myers' house, to the kids, and tells the scary story of how Michael killed his sister. And these scenes are so bad and so dumb as hell. The cops interrogate Allison and Karen about Michael as they hear Michael is alive and still working and breathing, or walking and breathing, excuse me. And Allison goes with Cameron, Tommy Doyle, and the others to hunt Michael, while Karen is so goddamn naive and tells Allison to stay with her grandmother, and eventually Allison ditches her. And I have a question. Why is Karen wearing a Christmas sweater on Halloween night? As it bothered me this entire goddamn movie. Who's leading the rampage against Michael? Allison, Tommy, Lindsay, Marion, Lonnie, Cameron, and the African American couple. Sorry, I don't know their names, okay? I just don't. As Lindsay tells the same kids that played around with the gay couple to get inside as they see Michael, and he attacks them and kills Marion and the African American couple, as this is what the fucking movie is about. The kills, as is explicitly told in the trailers and in this movie while watching it. And it bothers me that this movie takes place in 2 different scenes. One hunting for Michael in 1978, and the other, and today, I'm sorry. And the other is at the hospital, which makes no fucking sense. Lindsay hides in the ground where Michael can't see her, which was so stupid, while she hides in a river, which doesn't surprise me, honestly. Lori wakes up and tells Karen they got Michael, as Karen doesn't say anything to her about Michael still being alive, and they put Hawkins in the same room as Lori, which was too convenient. And she tells Hawkins she always liked him, and so did Hawkins with Lori. And that moment was characterization, unfortunately not very good in my opinion. Meanwhile, the Rampager sees Lindsay's car, as the African American couple and Marion are dead, and Lindsay is still alive. And these scenes are awful, as this is an ugly movie. I mean, Jesus. Tommy brings Lindsay to the hospital, and as the cops say the hospital is on lockdown, and Tommy gets supporters with Sheriff Brackett and chant "Evil dies tonight," and Tommy tells Lori Michael is still alive as she wants to fight back, and the gay couple gets a surprise visitor whom they assume are the kids, but nope, it's Michael, as he enters the house with a bloody hand, and they go upstairs and Michael kills them, which was fucking stupid. While another guy trying to get help at the hospital, as Tommy and others are led to believe it's Michael, and they chase him around, and Lori and Karen tell people as they see the face it's not Michael, which was a terrible scene, by the way. And Hawkins admits it was his fault because he stopped Sam Loomis from killing Michael on that Halloween night back in 1978. Meanwhile, Karen gets the guy in a safe spot and traps him safely as she protects him from one side as the other side is locked, and Tommy realizes it's not Michael either. And how stupid is this movie, as the guy commits suicide, which was terrible, And the dialogue is stupid and pretty badly written. This is a stupid movie with stupid dialogue. The kills are again very explicit, from the knife to Michael using his thumbs to poke one of the John's eyes out. To hell, even the firefighter scene at the beginning of the movie, I'm just not going with it. The Rampagers go to Michael's house while Lonnie goes inside alone without Cameron and Allison as he gets killed, and Allison and Cameron go inside the house, and Michael appears in a sneaky way, and Cameron kills Cameron off as Allison wants to kill Michael for her grandmother, until Karen comes in and takes off Michael's mask, and Karen leads him into a trap as we barely see his face, but unfortunately not good enough to get a good look at him. As she leads him to Tommy and the Rampagers, as she drops his mask, and he puts on his mask, and the Rampagers beat his ass and knocks him out. And as they think they win the night, Karen takes a stab at Michael and goes to Allison, who's wounded, and Michael fights back with the Rampagers by slicing Sheriff Brackett in the throat and killing everyone, including Tommy. And Karen sees a little boy who happens to be Michael as a kid, and Karen goes upstairs and gets killed by Michael. And that's the way the movie ends. Well, to be fair, it's setting up for next time when Halloween Ends comes out, but this climax is preposterous and stupid. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 3.3 out of 10. The dialogue is terribly written, and don't get me wrong, the kills are intense, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, it focuses on two plots. One is at the hospital, and the other one is rampaging against Michael, which makes no fucking sense. And I don't like any of the characters, even Laurie, as she barely has anything to do in this movie, as she's supposed to be the protagonist, and they just make her sit in the hospital this whole goddamn time. This is one of the bad Halloween films, as the acting is dull, the writing is terrible, and this is a very stupid movie with a very stupid dialogue, as it's bad for sure, but not as bad as Halloween 3 through 6 and Halloween Resurrection and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, but the original 2018 film, H2O, and somewhat Rob Zombie's first Halloween remake was better than this thing. So don't bother with this one. Until Halloween Ends comes out. So I'll be back next time for Halloween Ends, and until then, evil dies tonight.